Validation. It is the key to our transformation. It has enabled us to evolve from silence to self-expression, from shame to pride. This process is slow, often taking years of unlearning and rebuilding. But every so often, some gay takes a giant leap forward.
Once upon a time in a fabulous land, where morals are sparkly and fables are grand, Gaze-Up's tales with a wise man's twist, serving wisdom on a glittery dish.
Hello and welcome back to Gaze-Up's Fables, where we do classic tales with a modern gay twist. I'm Matt and I tell stories and talk about gay shit. Our triumphs, our challenges, our bravery, and our deep, deep stupidity. Last week we looked at validation, what it is and why we crave it. We could do 12 parts on validation and still not be done, but here we are wrapping it up in a concise two-parter. We talked about how we look outward for it and how we can look inward for it and how important it is to strike that balance. This week we are continuing, but with a slightly different lens. So let's dive back into the world of neediness, insecurity, praise, insatiability. God, I love being gay sometimes. There once was a gay little otter. He was a handsome young chap, always dressed in some sort of sporty attire, or on nights out, a variety of polo shirts. Neat little hair, parted to one side, or occasionally when going crazy, up in a quiff. And like all otters, he loved pebbles. Otters love rocks, not pebbles, and just sea otters, but this is a hybrid, and pebbles are way more fairy tale-y and adorable than rocks. A few years ago, he was swimming in his favourite part of the river when his polo shirt got stuck in between two underwater rocks. Otters can hold their breath for a long time, but these rocks were not budging and he was starting to panic. Just in the nick of time, he spotted a pebble, a plain, unassuming pebble, and he was able to use this to cut his shirt free and release himself to the fresh forest air up above. He put the plain, life-saving pebble in his little gay fur pocket, and he had been using it to crack open clams ever since. His favourite pebble. One day, the other otters were floating out at sea, huddled in a formation known as a raft. Research. The little gay otter paddled over to see what they were all talking about, and when he got there, he saw that they were all showing each other their pebbles. Different sizes, different colours. Some otters had one big one, and some otters had a whole collection. They were smugly discussing how they came to possess their pebbles, all the while staring over at the collection of other otters, fake otter smiles and deep envy behind their toothy facades. They all looked at the little gay otter as he approached and wondered where his pebbles were. He went to reach into his little gay fur pocket, but he hesitated. All he had was a plain, grey pebble. How could he explain to these other otters what it actually meant to him? How it had saved his life? With quick thinking, he found a way to distract the other otters. Oh look, a mermaid singing on a rock. He dipped below the surface in shame and confusion. He was determined to find other pebbles. Bigger, shinier, bolder, whatever it took. Maybe pink. He searched long and hard, but each new pebble he acquired wasn't good enough. This one was shiny, but not as shiny as that otter with the blonde fur over there, or even that pebble over there. This one was big, but not as big as that one with the otter with the huge tail resting his massive pebble on his belly. The otter was becoming increasingly frantic. All he wanted was to be able to swim confidently over to that raft, hold the hand of some gay otter, and fit in. You knew I'd be mentioning the hand-holding thing. It's on every second Hinge profile. Finally, he settled on a big blue pebble with green streaks. It was shiny, it was a decent size, it would have to do. He returned to the raft and confidently presented to the group. But there was no rapturous applause. There were no pools of green envy. There were nods of lukewarm approval at best. Crushed, he thought, well, at least I can go and eat some clams. God, I love clams. But this pebble didn't even make a dent in the shells, let alone release the gooey, oozy, clammy goodness. Why did he go to all this effort? What good is this pebble? He yearned for his plain, simple, unassuming pebble wherever it is now. Maybe it wasn't so plain after all. I think it's pretty obvious what the moral of this story is. Otters are cunts. Thank you. And the real moral of this week's story: the shiniest pebble does not crack the most clams. It's deep. And we're right back to validation. But this week, we're talking about how we seek validation by seeking status. The pebbles were status symbols. You get it. A social theory, or even an evolutionary theory, would suggest that humans are inherently social creatures who create hierarchies and pecking orders in any specific social circumstance that we're in. As we discussed last week, we often find value in ourselves by measuring ourselves in the eyes of others, the perspectives of others about us. This week is an extension of that, where we benchmark ourselves against others, not their perspectives on us, but what they have that we don't or do. The otter's first pebble was very useful to him, but on his quest, the pebbles got shinier and even bigger, but not necessarily more helpful to his life. They stopped being useful. He lost sight of what is important to him. Clams. And one way we exert our status is through milestones, markers of our progress and development. We have developmental milestones about crawling, talking, walking, growing. I work in consultancy, so we have project milestones. And in societies, different societies, each society, we have collectively recognized milestones as well. And we validate our own existence through these socially acceptable milestones that show that we are valid people, that we belong. Going to uni, buying a car, buying a house, getting married, having a child. Social scripts where progress is measured by milestones. And on top of that, there's an implicit understanding that you should achieve milestones by certain ages, certain stages of your development and progress. It's not just that you get them by a certain time. How do I know this? Because look around, listen around. You hear people justifying when they haven't achieved these milestones by certain ages. You're abnormal if you haven't done it by a certain age. Hence the justifications and the rationalizations and the desperate pleas for social acceptance despite not having these milestones. But these differ community to community, society to society, family to family, person to person. I started thinking about this at one point in my 20s. I was in a very nice relationship with a lovely man, and I had always been focused in my 20s on my education, less so on things like property and car ownership. I sold my car to buy a laptop, a computer to go to university, and that was really what my focus was, and I followed that all the way through as far as one can possibly go in education. My boyfriend at the time was very focused on buying a flat in Melbourne. And when we met, he was actually in the process of moving back in with his mum to finalise his deposit. I didn't think anything of it either way. He told me that that's what he wanted to do, and I thought, cool, great, good for you. And he did. He bought a flat, and I congratulated him. I said, that's fantastic. I genuinely meant it. That was so great. He wanted to do that and he did it. But he got really upset with me and I couldn't for the life of me understand why. I went out, took him out for a drink. I said, that's congratulations, that's great. When I asked him why he was so upset, he said that I had sort of underplayed the significance of it. I saw it as more of a transaction, an achievement for sure, but a transaction nonetheless. And what he said to me was, today I am a man. This was a social and identity and familial, as it turned out, milestone. He hadn't felt like a proper adult or man until he bought a flat. And now, at my age, in my late 30s, home ownership is a very big thing for me in London. And I'm sure part of it is about milestones. A lot of it feels like a search for stability after a turbulent few years. But some of it must be milestone related. I can measure that because I can see the progress of other people around me and how it feels to feel left behind. Personally, I have no interest in doing up a house, so it's not a project for me. I'd rather just have something that's just done. It's mine, sure, but it's not like this. I do things like this. I write. That's how I get my creative expression. It would do nothing for me in terms of having to decorate the bloody thing, but it would mean something to me in terms of my adulthood. Functionally, it would make very little difference to me on a day-to-day basis other than renting. Sure, like you can get kicked out of renting, but you can lose your job and lose your mortgage. I just mean on a day-to-day basis, very little. So my quest for it must be to do with status. A symbol of real independence, really standing on my own 2 feet, taking charge of my life, all of these sorts of things. I don't think it'll come down to choosing wall colors. Maybe, I'd be surprised, but you never know. I've done the marriage thing and it was a disaster, so I have no desire to do that anytime soon. But I do meet a lot of men. Hey, I'm cute. But I do meet a lot of men in their late 30s and early 40s who say things like, oh, I've just reached a stage of my life where I feel like I need to settle down and share it with someone. I hear this all the time. I'm ready to settle down, but a translation of that is I'm 40 and I shouldn't be single. Being single is something that younger people do. Or the flip side of it, what does it say about me that I'm single at this age? What does that mean about me? What am I presenting to the outside world? But these things are important. I'm not going to sit here and lecture people thinking that striving for achievements and status symbols is a bad thing inherently. It's not at all. Looking at what is important, benchmarking is important. As I said at the beginning, from an evolutionary perspective, it's how we work out our pecking order. Humans just do it. Benchmarking process, honoring rules and boundaries, communicating with people who are similar to you, finding people who are similar to you. There's lots of ways that we go about doing these things in a society. All of these things require that we look outside of ourselves and take note of what's going around. But as that old adage goes, comparison can also be the thief of joy. So we're hardwired to do it, but we also need to moderate it, using comparison as a motivator in a healthy way. I think the trick is not letting it demotivate you or feel devalued by not having things, but not making it your sole reason to be, because you'd be a bit of a nightmare to be around, and we all know these incredibly competitive people. Nightmares. But it got me thinking, what are some alternative milestones for gay men? I think part of what I'm talking about today is benchmarking progress, measuring your development, validating your existence as an adult in this world. We have socially acceptable milestones and social scripts, but I do think the idea of milestones are important, but I think you can make them for yourself. Coming out, I mean, that's the obvious one. Coming out first to yourself and then to others. The first time you have sex. The first time you have great sex. What about the smaller moments? The first time you smile at a guy in public and he smiles back. Or the first time a guy smiles at you and you don't look away in fear. How about your first STI? It's something we seem to talk about more freely in our community than other communities. The first time you realize that sex isn't everything. That empty sinking feeling right after is great for the soul. What about leaving a bad relationship? Realizing it is doing you harm and being brave enough to go it alone. How about recovering from major trauma, minor trauma? Having gone through this myself, I felt like I was just playing catch up to everyone else who had gotten on with their lives while I was recovering. But I don't celebrate the incredible resilience and wonderful qualities that I gained from that experience. I just tend to mourn what I lost, which is stupid. I can be stupid. Stupid bitch. So how about every now and then we take a deep breath, sit down and think about our own milestones, not everyone else's. Question your desired milestones, interrogate them. You might end up with the exact same list afterwards, but at least then you'll know it's you and not just society. Think critically about them. Collect your favorite pebbles, not just the shiny ones, and go and crack some clams. Thanks for tuning into this conclusion about validation. I am so pleased you'll no longer need it ever again. But I still do. Please subscribe to my channel if you like this content, and please like this video. It's how other people realize that it's good, by being liked, counting likes. Validation. Next time around, we'll be doing the season finale of season 1 of Gaesop's Fables, wrapping a lot of the stuff we've talked about this season up, and trying to understand compassion, gay compassion, and the paradox of why we actually struggle sometimes to empathize with people that we relate to. Have a moral week, babies. See you soon.
Gaesop's Fables, it's the tea, it's the show. Lessons in love with a fabulous glow. Quick wit, sharp, he'll strut the moral road. Gather round, hun, let the gay story unfold.